Kristen Cabot had one job as astronomer. She was the head of human resources, the person responsible for enforcing the rules that keep workplaces professional, ethical, and fair. And 8 seconds of concert footage ended all that. But the Kiss Cam moment is not what this video is really about, because now she sat down with Oprah to reform her image, including but not limited to claiming that the Coldplay concert was the first time they got physical. Watch.
That was the culmination point of feelings that had developed over the course of, 4 to 6 weeks, I would say.
Okay, so when we spoke over Zoom, you said that was the first time you all had done anything publicly. That's the first time you'd actually shared any kind of
physical touch.
Physical touch.
Yeah. Yeah. So what
at
happened
the Coldplay concert, the first time I touched you?
Yes. I'll explain.
Now, Cabot had been silent since July 2025 when she and Astronomer CEO Andy Byron were caught in an intimate embrace on the Jumbotron at a Coldplay concert in Boston. Both resigned shortly after. In December 2025, she gave her first interview to the New York Times where she described the moment as, and this is a direct quote, a bad decision after a couple of high noons. Clean, accountable, relatively contained. But I think that deep down, she loves the spotlight, and since I don't think she will be attending any Coldplay concerts anytime soon, the next best thing is to appear on Oprah, I guess. Because obviously that's what you do when you want privacy and people to leave you alone. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and yeah, just a warning that there's going to be a lot of eye rolling in this video, including from Oprah's own audience. Because Cabot wants to drive the point home that she's not just a person who made a bad decision. She's a trauma survivor, a champion for women who can't speak up, someone who's experienced echoes, people who lost their lives to similar circumstances.
There's a lot of people out there that experienced something similar that didn't either have the strength to come forward or were too traumatized or lost their lives due to.
So the story has been upgraded. And that upgrade is exactly what we need to examine. And yes, she's going to deliver these lines in the same detached body language you just saw. So let's go to the moment Oprah raises the claim at the center of Kristen's entire defense. The claim that the Coldplay concert was the very first time she and Andy Byron had any physical contact whatsoever. Pay attention to her face in the moment before she confirms it.
That was the culmination point of feelings that had developed over the course of, 4 to 6 weeks, I would say.
Okay, so when we spoke over Zoom, you said that was the first time you all had done anything publicly. That's the first time you'd actually shared any kind of
physical touch.
Physical touch.
Yeah. Yeah, so what
at
happened
the Coldplay concert, the first time I touched you?
Yes. I'll explain.
Did you catch it? When Oprah first frames the question before she even fully asks it, Kristen flashes a very large smile. And I want to be precise here because a smile at that moment could be nervousness, warmth, relief. But this one has a specific problem. The mouth is forced wide. The cheeks are not pushed up. The eyes are doing absolutely nothing. There's no pressure around the eyes, no crow's feet engagement, no lift. The technical term for this is a non-Duchenne smile, a social fake smile, not a felt one. The eyes and the mouth are telling two completely different stories. Now, here's something I want you to notice about the production of this interview. For the following 8 seconds, while Oprah re-asks this question, arguably the most important factual claim of the entire hour, the director cuts away. We get Oprah, we get the audience, we get anything except Kristen Cabot's face. And then when she finally says yes, that it was indeed the first time, the camera happens to be pointed at a man in the audience. And even if we cannot analyze Cabot thanks to poor direction choices, this gentleman's expression says it's all, because he doesn't believe it for a second, and neither does his face. And frankly, neither do I. Now, Kristen has a theory about why this happened, and it involves the concept of anonymity. Let's hear her describe where they were standing that night.
It also, I should note, it felt really anonymous. So we were in that area, and we were kind of up at the front of near the railing, but we were with a group and with friends. So we were dancing and talking, and it was really dark, and we got very swept up, and it didn't feel in any way that we were risking being, and it wasn't even calculated where we thought to ourselves, like, oh, no one's looking, let's like.
It felt really anonymous. She actually says that at Gillette Stadium, a 70,000-seat NFL venue built specifically to broadcast crowd members onto giant screens. And as she describes the location, she does use some illustrator gestures, hands moving, constructing the picture for you. But here's the thing. We are not debating whether she was actually there. She was clearly there. The illustrators are answering the wrong question. The real question is not where she was standing. It's whether it was appropriate to do what she was doing. And by explaining that it felt anonymous, that it felt dark, that she never thought about being seen, she's actually making her situation worse, not better, because the only reason you need the cover of darkness is if you know what you're doing shouldn't be seen. And then she says this, it wasn't calculated. Now, in a statement analysis, when someone volunteers a denial of something that nobody accused them of, that phrase deserves attention. Nobody in that moment asked her if it was calculated. She introduced the word herself. But again, this is where I want to stop and ask you something. What is the actual job of a Chief Human Resources Officer? HR's primary function in any company is to set, maintain, and enforce workplace conduct standards. That includes policies about romantic relationships between supervisors and their direct reports. Policies that exist specifically because of the power imbalance involved. Christine Cabot was not just any employee at Astronomer. She was the person who would have written, known, or enforced exactly the kind of policy she was now violating. So watch what happens when she touches on this subject.
Why do you think there was so much hate?
That's been one of the hardest things for me to reconcile because nobody knows me. Nobody that judged this knows me.
First, there's a huge sigh, as if she's exasperated by people judging her, but not knowing her. But the fact is that nobody needs to know her. People just need to know that A, she was still married, and B, Andy was still married. People doesn't need to know what your favorite handbag brand is. People are reacting over public, verifiable information.
So it wasn't me. It was, I think it was, listen, I think a lot of people have had not great interactions with HR. I think there's some piece of it that's like, stick it to the HR lady. Like, I get it.
Also, 3 full seconds of silence before, stick it to the HR lady.
That's kind of funny. I think, it was incredibly cliche on every level, like the CEO and the chief people officer. And I think, I don't know. I just think people hurt people. And I think...
And 3 more seconds before, hurt people. Those pauses are not thoughtful reflections. Those are the pauses of someone navigating very carefully around something they know is structurally damaging.
That's kind of funny. I think, it was incredibly cliche on every level, like the CEO and the chief people officer.
And then she says, that's kind of funny. But there's no levity in her voice when she says that. The humor is announced, not felt. She's telling you this is a light moment, but just telling it. Her delivery doesn't agree. And then that word, cliche. She calls it incredibly cliche that it was the CEO and the chief people officer. But the cliche she's describing is not an unfortunate coincidence of job titles. It is the most textbook example of exactly what HR departments exist to prevent. Calling it cliche is a way of making it sound like a charm and irony rather than a structural failure, and she is the structure that failed. Now, her central defense for this entire interview is that she believed Andy Byron was also separated from his wife, that she was not participating in an affair because both parties were effectively single, quote unquote. That's the argument. And here's what happened when they met reality.
that he was separated?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Zero doubt. Zero doubt.
Okay.
But I was left holding the bag. I mean, the entire trajectory of this would have changed if he would have just made a quick statement to say, my wife and I were separated at the time of the concert, just like my husband did. But it didn't matter when, it was great that Andrew did that, but it also, I was still left with, the tone changed a little bit. Okay, so she was separated, but he wasn't, so she's still a homewrecker.
She narrates it herself in the third person. Okay, so she was separated, but he wasn't, so she's still a homewrecker. She knows the logic. She can recite the counter-argument perfectly, and she has no rebuttal for Ed, because the rebuttal could require proving that Andy Byron's claim about his own marriage was true. And he has never spoken publicly, not once. His wife Megan reportedly removed his name from her social media immediately after the video went viral, a behavior that is not consistent with a couple who had been separated for years. Christine accepted on faith that her married boss told her about the status of his marriage, and she is now presenting that unverified claim as the pillar of her defense. But notice how she frames herself as the victim yet again.
And I think he has the luxury of staying silent, and he can go back to work when he's ready. I don't. I have to remind myself I'm not on trial, but I have to, in order for me to get back on my feet, I have to come out and explain. And I think that's a stark difference between the man and the woman in this situation. I have to explain and justify. And
here's what makes this particularly interesting. In December 2025, she told the New York Times, "I made a bad decision." 4 words, no caveats. By March 2026, that bad decision has become a trauma that killed careers, endangered children, and echoes the suffering of people who lost their lives to similar experiences. Both of those versions of the story cannot be the most accurate one. Now, none of this means the harassment was acceptable. The death threats, the targeting of her children, none of that is defensible, regardless of what she did or didn't do. But there's a significant difference between someone who made a bad decision and is being punished disproportionately and someone who made a bad decision, reframed it progressively over 8 months, and is now presenting that reframe to the most sympathetic audience on the planet. Let me know what you spotted in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Body Language Guy. Much love and bliss.